September 23rd, 2025. What is all the hype? There are countless videos, and they're increasing exponentially as the day gets closer. Everyone's talking about a rapture on the 23rd of September in 2025. There are countless videos now that are starting to come out talking about all the predictive programming that's been going on for years and years. How is this even possible that TV shows, movies, different events have telegraphed this September 23rd date years and sometimes just decades in advance? We'll talk about that as well. But I wanted to give you some clarity. I wanted to give you some understanding about what's actually happening here, why this date is very important, and why it's a date we should take a look at. But if you are of the opinion that on September 23rd, 2025, the rapture of the bride will take place, this might be some good information for you to just take as a few data points. So let's start talking first about this predictive programming. I've watched countless videos that people have produced, and they talk about this September 23rd has been telegraphed, not a specific date, or excuse me, not a specific year, but this specific date of September 23rd, again and again in movies and TV shows, etc. How is this even possible? Years or, sometimes, over 10 years or more before September 23rd, 2025 comes. Well, that's very, very simple, actually. Um, everyone, I've talked in these videos that the number seven is extremely important. The number seven is all throughout the Bible. God has, through Brendan Peterson's work, showed you just hundreds and hundreds of times that there's this mathematical signature that God leaves on things. And his signature seems to have something to do with the number seven. Obviously, it's a number of completion for the days of creation, etc. But seven is very, very important, and seven is everywhere throughout the Bible, and especially in the book of Revelation. But so it makes sense that when you are waiting for the end of a generation, which is called the fig tree generation, this is when Jesus, in essence, is giving this parable of the fig tree, and he's stating that all of these very, very difficult things are going to happen before this generation ends. Well, when we come to find out that a generation is between 70 and 80 years, 70 years, again, this number seven, and if we're lucky enough, it would extend another 10 years. So the Bible's very clear about that. So we have this 70 to 80-year window. So when we look at 70 years that we've already passed for the fig tree generation to have lived out its duration, or these events have happened within it, we've already passed that milestone. But we're not past the 77th, or 7, or 70 plus 7. Remember, again, in a previous video, I talked about 70 times 7, or 490. This was how many times Jesus' name is coded into the Bible. From it's 490 times in even books in the New Testament, and Jesus appears 490 times in odd books in the New Testament. Jesus is the only name that does this out of all the other words that exist in the Bible. And again, it's telegraphing these sevens, or in this case now, the fig tree generation would be 70 plus 7, or 7. So this model, again, already telegraphed that to you. So when you look down here, this the fig tree generation years. Okay, when we get to the end of year 5785, that completes the 77th year of the fig tree generation. This was known all the way back in 1948 when Israel became a nation. All you had to do was take either 70 years or 77 years, because we already know through the Bible that the number 7 is very, very significant to God. It doesn't mean that the individuals telegraphing this September 23rd, 2025, which would be the 77th year, have any special knowledge that you or I have. In other words, there's no inside information on the significance of this. This model lets us know that we need to take a look at this time period, because when we finish the 77th year, again, this is right on the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, and the eve of that is the 22nd. So the 23rd starts that Feast of Trumpets ceremony or feast. And then again, this is the area right here. If we want to zoom in on this, there's a blow up of that over here. Excuse me. Let me move this over and blow it up as much as I can here for you. So you'll see again right here. Here's this 77th fig tree generation year 5785 ends exactly on this date, the 22nd of September. The Feast of Tabernacles, Rosh Hashanah, starting year 5786, starts on September 23rd, 2025. So again, it's very, very simple for these individuals that are already well aware of the number 7. It's very simple for them to look into the future and just see the 77th year of the fig tree, make an estimate or a guesstimate, if you will, that that will be the end of the fig tree generation. It's because we can't pass 80 years, so we have to know that, again, we have year 78, 79, 80, and then 81. But which year would God pick as being significant? Well, he would pick most likely the 77th year. So that again ends right here on the 22nd of September, 2025. That means that September 23rd, 2025 already could have been predicted decades ago. And this is why you see it in movies. This is why you see it in TV shows and so on and so forth. It's not, again, to say that these individuals have any foreknowledge or they have inside information, but it's a pretty good guess. Well, I'm not into guessing in this model. This model, again, is all based on math. So let's take a look again at, I'll review a bit about the smoking gun video that I did, where we had this 777 days. So remember up here, when you start from the Revelation 12 sign on September 23rd, 2017, and you go forward in time 2,147 days, which means to discover, that ends up being the 11th of August, 2023, which happens to be the exact day that the astronomer Nishimura discovered this comet. Now, if you go to rosettastar.com and you look at that first video, that is just a secular video. Those aren't individuals that are into eschatology or anything. And notice towards the end of that video, he says, "How did we not see this?" Well, again, that was kind of a question that I raised earlier. But it's very, very interesting that this comet eluded discovery until exactly this day. So then from this day, when we count forward 777 days, then we again land on 3.5 days after the 77th fig tree year generation ends, according to this model. So this isn't random. This is where potentially trumpet number one, or hail mixed with fire and blood, will occur. So this really is our very first day, according to this model, that we should be potentially seeing some actual physical signs that this model is valid. If not, if nothing happens on the 26th, or by the time we get to the end of the 26th or the 27th, then the validity of this model starts to break down. Now, everything before the Feast of Tabernacles here, really the 14th of October, we should see some of these things start happening. We should start seeing trumpets. We should start seeing something very significant on the 6th of October, when the Draconids meteor shower, or the sign of the dragon, number 5, is telegraphed. This is also the midpoint, or the midpoint of this sign of the dragon also happens to be the exact day that the 3i Atlas hits perihelion at 0.33 astronomical units from the sun. In other words, its closest position to the sun that it will ever be happens to be right in the middle of this sign of the dragon. You can read this sign of the dragon information down here as well. Another data point, again, with this sign of the dragon that's really, really important is in 1933, when it caught astronomers completely off guard. This is also one of the top 3 or 4 instances of a meteor shower recorded in modern records, which basically date back to the early 1800s. This in 1933, this Draconids meteor shower, or the first sign of the dragon, this was the year again that Hitler rose to power. So what God's doing is he's using this sign of the dragon, and he has done so 4 times in the past, and you can read about those here. But in that last video, I don't think that I mentioned, and I think it's actually very, very significant, that individuals, when this happened, they thought, like many of them thought, the world is coming to an end. Like they literally thought that the sky was falling. There was the meteor activity was so massive, and there was so many meteors per minute, that it just looked absolutely horrific and very ominous for those individuals. So this is again why I said in that last video on the smoking guns video, is that what's probably going to happen is this sign of the dragon is probably going to be the worst ever. Now again, that's again just according to this model, but that's not to say that any of this area right here could be valid. It simply may not be. But one thing that happens to this model that completely breaks down is after the Feast of Tabernacles, the 8th day, or Shemini Atzeret, which is the 8th day. This technically right here, the 14th of October, according to this model, is actually the day of the man-child rapture, or being caught up to the throne room of God. This is the rapture date here, not the 23rd. So if you're seeing this video, let's say after the 23rd, and you come across it and you're kind of wondering, maybe the rapture isn't going to happen, or you're in a, it's whatever, you're having issues, or you're very disappointed about it. This is something that you've really been looking towards, as far as this being the rapture. Again, hold your head high all the time. This is a battle. This is a war. This is the ultimate war between good and evil that will ever exist. And we've been in this war and in this battle since 2017, when God telegraphed it to us with the sign of the dragon. Now we're starting to really, this is boots hitting the ground at this point. So what's also going to happen, and what God always does, is he's always telegraphing beforehand things that are unmistakable. So this is why this model is suggesting that trumpets 1, 2, 3, and 4, in essence, will sound prior to the transformation of the man-child from mortal to immortal on day 1 of Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days, where the 144,000 are sealed, where trumpet number 5 is stopped, as noted in Revelation 7:3, and then we get to the rapture here. So don't dismay if on the 23rd nothing happens. What I'm actually looking for on the 23rd, what I'm paying attention to, is on the 23rd, will there actually happen to be an earthquake or something that precedes the first trumpet? Because this, again, is an announcement. This is the Feast of Trumpets, day 1, after the 77th fig tree generation. This is most likely a very significant date. Will it be the rapture? Not according to this model, but nonetheless, it still could be a significant date. And from this point, again, look at 3.5 days later to see if we actually have the first trumpet. The first trumpet would be hail mixed with fire and blood. If this physically manifests in our world, if somewhere in the world, or across the world, or a portion of the world, something very significant like this happens, then the validity of this model obviously dramatically increases. If 3.5 days after that, starting on the 30th of September, there is a meteor or asteroid that actually hits an ocean, either the Pacific, which is what I would think it would be, or the Atlantic, for Revelation 8 to 9. Well, if these two trumpets have sound, then the validity of this model is probably close to 100%. Because what would happen at that point is that all of this math would start to play out before the Feast of Tabernacles happens. And if that's the case on these dates, then all of a sudden we can then look at this full model. Again, we're just looking at this little space right here, is blown up here. But if that is correct, then that means all of the math preceding it and all of the math following it is probably going to be correct, because we're drilling down into a very narrow focus here. And if these trumpets play out specifically on those dates, then this model is most likely pretty close to being completely correct. So I just wanted to just throw this video out. I wasn't planning on doing that, but there's an awful lot of individuals that are right now, just it seems like September 23rd there's a lot of rapture mania going on out there right now. And when whatever happens on that date, if that date comes and goes and there's nothing, there might be a lot of individuals that are really questioning what's going on. Um, I'm not anticipating anything significant happening on that date. Maybe an earthquake, but other than that, again, that's nothing that's telegraphed in the Bible. But I'm just looking for something that might telegraph to us that trumpet number 1 just may sound. I hope this information has been helpful to you. Again, I have no idea of the validity of this model. Only events that will start happening will start to validate it more and more. No matter what happens with any of these models or predictions or timelines or what have you, we never, ever should be in a position of weakness or worry or wondering what's going to happen. We should constantly be strong and resolved in our faith. We are sons and daughters of the Most High, and none of this information, none of these events, no matter what happens, should we be swayed of that faith in any way. Appreciate your time. Thank you for watching the video, and time willing, I'll put out another video with some more information. God bless you.